Video 6. Clone, Heal, and Patch. Retouch with the Clone Stamp tool. The Clone Stamp tool paints one part of an image over another part of the same image, or over another part of any open document that has the same color mode. You can also paint part of one layer over another layer. The Clone Stamp tool is useful for duplicating objects or removing a defect in an image. To use the Clone Stamp tool, you set a sampling point on the area you want to copy or clone the pixels from and paint over another area. To paint with the most current sampling point, whenever you stop and resume painting, select the Aligned option. Deselect the Aligned option to paint starting from the initial sampling point, no matter how many times you stop and resume painting. You can use any brush tip with the Clone Stamp tool, which gives you precise control over the size of the clone area. You can also use opacity and flow settings to control how paint will be applied to the cloned area. 1. Select the Clone Stamp tool. 2. Choose a brush tip and set brush options for the blending mode, opacity, and flow in the options bar. 3. To specify how you want to align the sampled pixels and how to sample data from the layers in your document, set any of the following in the options bar. Aligned samples pixels continuously without losing the current sampling point, even if you release the mouse button. Deselect Aligned to continue using the sampled pixels from the initial sampling point each time you stop and resume painting. Sample samples data from the layers you specify. To sample from the active layer and visible layers below it, choose Current and Below. To sample only from the active layer, choose Current Layer. To sample from all visible layers, choose All Layers. To sample from all visible layers except adjustment layers, choose All Layers and click the Ignore Adjustment Layers icon to the right of the Sample pop-up menu. 4. Set the sampling point by positioning the pointer in any open image and Alt-clicking in Windows or Option-clicking in Mac OS. 5. Optional. In the Clone Source panel, click a Clone Source button and set an additional sampling point. You can set up to 5 different sampling sources. The Clone Source panel saves the sampled sources until you close the document. 6. Optional. To select the sampled source you want, click a Clone Source button in the Clone Source panel. 7. Optional. Do any of the following in the Clone Source panel. To scale or rotate the source that you're cloning, enter a value for W, width, H, height, or the rotation in degrees. To show an overlay of the source that you're cloning, select Show Overlay and specify the overlay options. 8. Drag over the area of the image you want to correct. Retouch with the Healing Brush tool. The Healing Brush tool lets you correct imperfections, causing them to disappear into the surrounding image. Like the cloning tools, you use the Healing Brush tool to paint with sampled pixels from an image or pattern. However, the Healing Brush tool also matches the texture, lighting, transparency, and shading of the sampled pixels to the pixels being healed. As a result, the repaired pixels blend seamlessly into the rest of the image. Select the Healing Brush tool. 1. Click the brush sample in the options bar and set brush options in the pop-up panel. Mode specifies the blending mode. Choose Replace to preserve noise, film grain, and texture at the edges of the brush stroke when using a soft-edged brush. Source specifies the source to use for repairing pixels. Sampled to use pixels from the current image, or Pattern to use pixels from a pattern. If you choose a pattern, select a pattern from the Pattern pop-up menu. Aligned samples pixels continuously without losing the current sampling point, even if you release the mouse button. Deselect Aligned to continue to use the sampled pixels from the initial sampling point each time you stop and resume painting. Sample samples data from the layers you specify. To sample from the active layer and visible layers below it, choose Current and Below. To sample only from the active layer, choose Current Layer. To sample from all visible layers, choose All Layers. To sample from all visible layers except adjustment layers, choose All Layers and click the Ignore Adjustment Layers icon to the right of the sample pop-up menu. 2. Set the sampling point by positioning the pointer over an area of the image and Alt-clicking in Windows or Option-clicking in macOS. 3. Optional. In the Clone Source panel, click a Clone Source button and set an additional sampling point. You can set up to 5 different sampling sources. The Clone Source panel remembers the sampled sources until you close the document you're editing. 4. In the Clone Source panel, click a Clone Source button to select the sampled source you want. 5. Optional. Do any of the following in the Clone Source panel. To scale or rotate the source that you're cloning, enter a value for W, width, H, height, or the rotation in degrees. To show an overlay of the source that you're cloning, select Show Overlay and specify the overlay options. 6. Drag in the image. The sampled pixels are melded with the existing pixels each time you release the mouse button. Look in the status bar to view the status of the melding process. Patch tool. Repair an area using sampled pixels. 1. Select the patch tool. 2. Do one of the following. Drag in the image to select the area you want to repair and select Source in the options bar. Drag in the image to select the area from which you want to sample and select Destination in the options bar. 3. To adjust the selection, do one of the following. Shift drag in the image to add to the existing selection. Alt drag in Windows or Option drag in macOS in the image to subtract from the existing selection. Alt shift drag in Windows or Option shift drag in macOS in the image to select an area intersected by the existing selection. 4. Position the pointer inside the selection and do one of the following. If Source is selected in the options bar, drag the selection border to the area from which you want to sample. When you release the mouse button, the originally selected area is patched with the sampled pixels. If Destination is selected in the options bar, drag the selection border to the area you want to patch. When you release the mouse button, the newly selected area is patched with the sampled pixels. Repair an area using a pattern. 1. Select the Patch tool. 2. Drag in the image to select the area you want to repair. Note: you can also make a selection prior to selecting the Patch tool. 3. To adjust the selection, do one of the following. Shift drag in the image to add to the existing selection. Alt drag in Windows or Option drag in macOS in the image to subtract from the existing selection. Alt shift drag in Windows or Option shift drag in macOS in the image to select an area intersected by the existing selection. 4. Select a pattern from the Pattern panel in the Options bar and click Use Pattern. Video 7. Using the selection tools. Select with the marquee tools. The marquee tools let you select rectangles, ellipses, and 1-pixel rows and columns. 1. Select a marquee tool. Rectangular marquee makes a rectangular selection or a square when used with the Shift key. Elliptical marquee makes an elliptical selection or a circle when used with the Shift key. Single row or single column marquee defines the border as a 1 pixel wide row or column. 2. Specify one of the selection options in the option bar. Selection options are New, Add to, Subtract from, Intersect with. 3. Specify a feathering setting in the options bar. Turn anti-aliasing on or off for the elliptical marquee tool. 4. For the rectangular marquee tool or the elliptical marquee tool, choose a style in the options bar. Normal determines the marquee proportions for dragging. Fixed ratio sets a height to width ratio. Enter values, decimal values are valid, for the aspect ratio. For example, to draw a marquee twice as wide as it is high, enter 2 for the width and 1 for the height. Fixed size specifies set values for the marquee's height and width. Enter pixel values in whole numbers. 5. For aligning your selection to guides, a grid, slices, or document bounds, do one of the following to snap your selection. Choose View, Snap, or choose View, Snap to, and choose a command from the submenu. The marquee selection can snap to a document boundary or to a variety of Photoshop extras controlled in the Snap to submenu. 6. Do one of the following to make a selection. With the rectangular marquee tool or the elliptical marquee tool, drag over the area you want to select. Hold down Shift as you drag to constrain the marquee to a square or circle. Release the mouse button before you release Shift to keep the selection shape constrained. To drag a marquee from its center, hold down Alt in Windows or Option in macOS after you begin dragging. With the single row or single column marquee tool, click near the area you want to select, and then drag the marquee to the exact location. If no marquee is visible, increase the magnification of your image view. Select with the Magnetic Lasso tool. When you use the Magnetic Lasso tool, the border snaps to the edges of defined areas in the image. The Magnetic Lasso tool is not available for 32 bits per channel images. The Magnetic Lasso tool is especially useful for quickly selecting objects with complex edges set against high contrast backgrounds. 1. Select the Magnetic Lasso tool. 2. Specify one of the selection options in the options bar. Selection options are New, Add to, Subtract from, Intersect with. 3. Optional. Set feathering and anti-aliasing in the options bar. 4. Set any of these options. Width. To specify a detection width, enter a pixel value for width. The magnetic lasso detects edges only within the specified distance from the pointer. Contrast. To specify the lasso's sensitivity to edges in the image, enter a value between 1% and 100% for contrast. A higher value detects only edges that contrast sharply with their surroundings. A lower value detects lower contrast edges. Frequency. To specify the rate at which the lasso sets fastening points, enter a value between 0 and 100 for frequency. A higher value anchors the selection border in place more quickly. Stylus pressure. If you are working with a stylus tablet, select or deselect the stylus pressure option. When the option is selected, an increase in stylus pressure decreases the edge width. 5. Click in the image to set the first fastening point. Fastening points anchor the selection border in place. 6. To draw a freehand segment, either release or keep the mouse button depressed, and then move the pointer along the edge you want to trace. The most recent segment of the selection border remains active. As you move the pointer, The active segment snaps to the strongest edge in the image based on the detection width set in the options bar. Periodically, the magnetic lasso tool adds fastening points to the selection border to anchor previous segments. 7. If the border doesn't snap to the desired edge, click once to add a fastening point manually. Continue to trace the edge and add fastening points as needed. 8. To switch temporarily to the other lasso tools, do one of the following. To activate the lasso tool, hold down Alt in Windows or Option in macOS and drag with the mouse button depressed. To activate the polygonal lasso tool, hold down Alt in Windows or Option in macOS and click. 9. To erase recently drawn segments and fastening points, press the Delete key until you've erased the fastening points for the desired segment. 10. Close the selection border. To close the border with a freehand magnetic segment, double-click or press Enter or Return. To close the border with a straight segment, hold down Alt in Windows or Option in macOS and double-click. To close the border, drag over the starting point and click. 11. Optional. Click Refine Edge to further adjust the selection boundary or view the selection against different backgrounds or as a mask. Select with the polygonal lasso tool. The polygonal lasso tool is useful for drawing straight edge segments of a selection border. 1. Select the polygonal lasso tool and select Options. 2. Specify one of the selection options in the options bar. Selection options are New, Add to, Subtract from, Intersect with. 3. Optional. Set feathering and anti-aliasing in the options bar. 4. Click in the image to set the starting point. 5. Do one or more of the following. To draw a straight segment, position the pointer where you want the first straight segment to end and click. Continue clicking to set endpoints for subsequent segments. To draw a straight line at a multiple of 45 degrees, hold down Shift as you move to click the next segment. To draw a freehand segment, hold down Alt in Windows or Option in macOS and drag. When you finish, release Alt or Option and the mouse button. To erase recently drawn segments, press the Delete key. 6. Close the selection border. Position the polygonal lasso tool pointer over the starting point. A closed circle appears next to the pointer, and click. If the pointer is not over the starting point, double-click the polygonal lasso tool pointer or Control-click in Windows or Command-click in macOS. 7. Optional. Click Refine Edge to further adjust the selection boundary or view the selection against different backgrounds or as a mask. Select with the lasso tool. The lasso tool is useful for drawing free-form segments of a selection border. 1. Select the lasso tool and select Options. 2. Drag to draw a freehand selection of the border. 3. Specify one of the selection options in the options bar. Selection options are New, Add to, Subtract from, Intersect with. 4. Optional. Set feathering and anti-aliasing in the options bar. 5. To draw a straight edge selection border when no other pixels are present, press Alt in Windows or Option in macOS and click where segments should begin and end. You can switch between drawing freehand and straight edge segments. 6. To erase recently drawn segments, hold down the Delete key until you've erased the fastening points for the desired segment. 7. To close the selection border, release the mouse without holding down Alt in Windows or Option in macOS. 8. Optional. Click Refine Edge to further adjust the selection boundary or view the selection against different backgrounds or as a map. Video 8. Groups and Comps. Create a new layer or group. 1. Do one of the following. To create a new layer or group using default options, click the Create a New Layer button or New Group button in the Layers panel. Choose Layer, New, Layer, or choose Layer, New, Group. Choose New Layer or New Group from the Layers panel menu. 2. Set Layer Options and click OK. Name specifies a name for the layer or group. Use Previous Layer to create clipping mask. This option is not available for groups. Color assigns a color to the layer or group in the Layers panel. Mode specifies a blending mode for the layer or group. Opacity specifies an opacity level for the layer or group. Fill with mode, neutral color, fills the layer with a preset neutral color. Create a new layer with effects from another layer. Select the existing layer in the Layers panel. 2. Drag the layer to create a new layer button at the bottom of the Layers panel. The newly created layer contains all the effects of the existing one. Convert a selection into a new layer. 1. Make a selection. 2. Do one of the following. Choose Layer, New, Layer via Copy to copy the selection into a new layer. Choose Layer, New, Layer via Cut to cut the selection and paste it into a new layer. Apply and view layer comps. Do any of the following. To view a layer comp, you first need to apply it in the document. In the Layer Comp panel, click the Apply Layer Comp icon next to a selected comp. To cycle through a view of all the layer comps, use the Previous and Next buttons at the bottom of the panel. To cycle through a selected view of comps, select the comps in the Layer Comps panel, and then click the Next and Previous buttons at the bottom of the panel. This cycles through only the comps you selected. To restore the document to its state before you chose a layer comp, click the Apply Layer Comp icon next to Last Document State at the top of the Layer Comp panel. Video 9. Opacity and Blend Modes. Specify opacity for a layer or group. A layer's opacity determines to what degree it obscures or reveals the layer beneath it. A layer with 1% opacity appears nearly transparent, whereas one with 100% opacity appears completely opaque. 1. Select a layer or group in the Layers panel. 2. Do one of the following. In the Layers panel, enter a value in the opacity text box or drag the opacity pop-up slider. Choose Layer, Layer Style, Blending Options. Enter a value in the opacity text box or drag the opacity pop-up slider. Select the Move tool and type a number indicating the percentage of opacity. Blending Modes. Specify a blending mode for a layer or group. A layer's blending mode determines how its pixels blend with underlying pixels in the image. You can create a variety of special effects using blending modes. By default, the blending mode of a layer group is pass-through, which means that the group has no blending properties of its own. When you choose a different blending mode for a group, you effectively change the order in which the image components are put together. All of the layers in the group are put together first. The composite group is then treated as a single image and blended with the rest of the image using the selected blending mode. Thus, if you choose a blending mode other than pass-through for the group, none of the adjustment layers or layer blending modes inside the group will apply to layers outside the group. 1. Select a layer or group from the Layers panel. 2. Choose a blending mode. From the Layers panel, choose an option from the Blend Mode pop-up menu. Choose Layer, Layer Style, Blending Options, and then choose an option from the Blend Mode pop-up menu. Blend and Fade Filter Effects. The Fade command changes the opacity and blending mode of any filter, painting tool, erasing tool, or color adjustment. The Fade command blending modes are a subset of those in the painting and editing tools options, excluding the behind and clear modes. Applying the Fade command is similar to applying the filter effect on a separate layer and then using the layer opacity and blending mode controls. 1. Apply a filter, painting tool, or color adjustment to an image or selection. 2. Choose Edit, Fade. Select the Preview option to preview the effect. 3. Drag the slider to adjust the opacity from 0% transparent to 100%. 4. Choose a blending mode from the Mode menu. Note: the Color Dodge, Color Burn, Lighten, Darken, Difference, and Exclusion blending modes do not work on lab images. 5. Click OK. Video 10. Masks and Layers. Add and edit vector masks. You create vector masks with the Pen or Shapes tools. Add a vector mask that shows or hides the entire layer. 1. In the Layers panel, select the layer you want to add the vector mask to. 2. Do one of the following. To create a vector mask that reveals the entire layer, click the Vector Mask button in the Masks panel or choose Layer, Vector Mask, Reveal All. To create a vector mask that hides the entire layer, Alt-click in Windows or Option-click in macOS the Vector Mask button in the Masks panel, or choose Layer, Vector Mask, Hide All. Add a vector mask that shows the contents of a shape. 1. In the Layers panel, select the layer to which to add a vector mask. 2. Select a path or use one of the Shape or Pen tools to draw a work path. Note: to create a path with a Shape tool, click the Paths icon in the Shape Tool Options bar. 3. Click the Vector Mask button in the Masks panel or choose Layer, Vector Mask, Current Path. Edit a vector mask. 1. In the Layers panel, select the layer containing the vector mask you want to edit. 2. Click the Vector Mask button in the Masks panel or the thumbnail in the Paths panel. Then change the shape using the Shape, Pen, or Direct Selection tools. Change Vector Mask opacity or feather mask edges. 1. In the Layers panel, select the layer containing the vector mask. 2. Click the Vector Mask button in the Masks panel. 3. In the Masks panel, drag the Density slider to adjust the mask opacity, and the Feathering slider to apply feathering to the mask edges. Remove a vector mask. 1. In the Layers panel, select the layer containing the vector mask. 2. Click the Vector Mask button in the Masks panel. 3. In the Masks panel, click the Delete Mask button. Disable or enable a vector mask. Do one of the following. Select the layer containing the vector mask you want to disable or enable, and click the Disable Enable Mask button in the Masks panel. Shift-click the Vector Mask thumbnail in the Layers panel. Select the layer containing the vector mask you want to disable or enable and choose Layer, Vector Mask, Disable, or Layer, Vector Mask, Enable. A red X appears over the mask thumbnail in the Layers panel when the mask is disabled, and the layer's content appears without masking effects. Convert a vector mask to a layer mask. Select the layer containing the vector mask you want to convert, and choose Layer, Rasterize, Vector Mask. Important: after you rasterize a vector mask, you can't change it back into a vector object. Add layer masks. When you add a layer mask, you need to decide if you want to hide or show all of the layer. Later, you'll paint on the mask to hide portions of that layer and reveal the layers beneath. Or you can create a layer mask that automatically hides a portion of the layer by making a selection before you create the mask. Add a mask that shows or hides the entire layer. 1. Make sure that no part of your image is selected. Choose Select, Deselect. 2. In the Layers panel, select the layer or group. 3. Do one of the following. To create a mask that reveals the entire layer, click the Pixel Mask button in the Masks panel, or click the Add Layer Mask button in the Layers panel, or choose Layer, Layer Mask, Reveal All. To create a mask that hides the entire layer, Alt-click in Windows or Option-click in macOS the Pixel Mask button in the Masks panel, or Alt-click in Windows or Option-click in macOS the Add Layer Mask button, or choose Layer, Layer Mask, Hide All. Add a layer mask that hides part of a layer. 1. In the Layers panel, select the layer or group. 2. Select the area in the image and do one of the following. Click the Pixel Mask button in the Masks panel or the New Layer Mask button in the Layers panel to create a mask that reveals the selection. Alt-click in Windows or Option-click in macOS the Pixel Mask button in the Masks panel, or the Add Layer Mask button in the Layers panel to create a mask that hides the selection. Choose Layer, Layer Mask, Reveal Selection, or Hide Selection. Apply a layer mask from another layer. Do one of the following. To move the mask to another layer, drag the mask to the other layer. To duplicate the mask, Alt-drag in Windows or Option-drag in macOS the mask to the other layer.